Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's The World This Week. We're in the company of Chris Verdicki of the Daily Beast partner of the show. Welcome back as well to James McCauley, Paris correspondent for the Washington Post, and Sylvain Chassagny, Paris bureau chief for the Financial Times, and Patrick Smith, editor-in-chief of the Africa Report. We were talking just before the break about how insurgents are impacting politics in the United States. There are also here surges to be seen in France for the first ever primaries of the center and the right have former Prime Minister François Fillon going from Mr. Nobody, that was his nickname his rivals gave him, to runaway favorite to beat the more moderate Alain Juppé, another former PM. These images are from Tuesday night in Lyon, after Fillon won 44% in the first round. And Sylvain Chassagny, how did Mr. Nobody get such an enthusiastic following?
It's amazing. So it's a major electoral upset, but it's not a populist upset in a way, in the sense that the voters really pushed him forward, where the provincial bourgeoisie, the traditional right, very conservative Catholic, those voters are normally quiet and discreet, and they're well off. They're mostly retirees, but they all of a sudden got angry at the 2013 gay marriage legislation. And they voted for a man who resembles them. There's an element of an anti-establishment, message to the Parisian liberal elites. But that's not, the blue-collar workers, shouting out, their despair.
Yeah, because that is the key question.
Yeah.
I saw your story, and I was wondering, are these people who want to keep the system as it is or blow it up?
Well, they want someone who can, restore France's, grandeur, France's international standing, and also restore the values, the family values. They believe that these traditional values of the right have been deconstructed. They've been polluted by the liberal values of the left and the elite and the intellectual in Paris, since 1968, since May 68, basically. But there's now, after Sarkozy and all, it's more reactions to Sarkozy and Hollande presidencies rather than against a system, right? Even though he is a radical, and if he's elected, it would be a major, revolution, a free market revolution. But I don't think they have that in mind. They want someone who restore, the international standing, like De Gaulle. They want someone like De Gaulle, right?
Patrick Smith, were you surprised to see a man who's not ashamed of saying that
he likes Margaret Thatcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it takes me back. I mean, one of the questions I had in my mind is anyone voting in terms of who's going to be the best candidate on the French right to beat Marine Le Pen? Is that part of the calculation? I don't know, because, he's portrayed slightly as a I know you've said he isn't, but he's a sort of slightly semi-insurgent, because he said nice things about Donald Trump. He said nice things about Vladimir Putin. He's sort of said almost quite nice things about Bashar al-Assad. So he does represent something different, certainly in international relations as well as what he's going to do in France. I've never thought that the lessons of Margaret Thatcher's reign as Tory party prime minister in Britain were ever going to have much resonance in France, and I still don't believe it. And she was responsible, actually, for the dismantling of what was left of British manufacturing and British industry and replacement by a financial services industry, which is now on its way out. So I don't know whether the French audience and the French electorate are going to really revel in that.
Chris Verdicki?
Well, I think everything that everybody's saying about Fillon is true, but I'm wondering where voters are going to be left in April when, if it's Fillon and Marine Le Pen emerging as the two contenders for the presidency in the runoff, what happens to everybody to the left of them, which is almost everybody? I also think that Fillon, you're right when you say people are not paying that much attention to Fillon's economic program.
They haven't read it.
But it's extremely right-wing, and he's talking about firing 500,000 people from government
Yeah,
service.
except in Thursday's debate, he already seemed to be
but even so, the bottom
fudging
line
it a
is,
little bit.
well, but that's with the Thatcherite thing. All of that is about firing people, reconstructing, rebuilding the economy along radically different lines. I agree with Patrick. I don't think the French are going to go for that for a moment. But Marine Le Pen, her policies, economic policies, are not nearly as radical as that. Not nearly. I think she's got a, if we talk, use the word advisedly, but if we talk about her party as a nationalist, socialist party, there's a lot of...
Just need to take off one of the qualifiers there.
There's a lot of the socialist in there, at least in comparison to Fillon.
James Macaulay, did you watch the debate Thursday?
Yes.
And what was your reaction watching the more moderate Alain Juppé versus the more hardline Catholic François Fillon? The two seem to agree on a lot of things when it came to economics.
Yes, and coming out of a U.S. campaign season, I have to say it was kind of remarkable to see such a sort of
So civilized.
dignified, civilized exchange.
It was almost
in
informative.
which also both candidates related their ideas to the Pope. I thought that was very interesting to see as well in this most secular of republics. I don't know. I agree with what you were saying, Chris, about how if Fillon emerges as he seems likely to do, where does that leave the left? And like, will some of these voters, once they sort of get a handle on just how radical the kind of neoliberal dimension of his policy is, will they support the Front National? Because it seems to maintain some of this like French social model that has been a fixture of French life since 1945.
And Sylvain Chassagny, the French presidential election, it's not like the U.S. with that electoral college thing.
Yeah, it's
This is one person, one vote. So is it going to be different from Brexit, from the U.S. elections in that sense?
no. There's a big risk that the the discontent and anxiety of the working class expresses itself. There's definitely and Marine Le Pen is well positioned to capture that anxiety. And and we knew that before Fillon. I think Fillon is unexpected, so people are still wondering how that would play out and how it will impact Marine Le Pen's position. I think it could. She has within her party supporters who are quite attracted to the sovereignist, nationalistic, Gaullist attitude, conservative value, Catholic. She's got a strand of that in her party.
So that's bad for her.
So that's going to hurt her. To which extent, I'm not sure. I can't tell you how big it's going to be. But all the working class people who she's been reaching out to over the past few years, and she's now 50% of the working class people, blue collar workers, are saying that they're planning to vote for her next year. So the only thing is that they tend not to turn out that much. So it's between these two populations, how this is going to play out. This is extremely risky, I find.
All right, the topic of fake news reared its head in Thursday's debate between François Fillon and Alain Juppé, with Juppé doing the complaining.
For months, I've been subjected to a campaign of attack that's completely false, which started with I used public funds in Bordeaux to finance a gigantic mosque, which doesn't exist. Then I was rebaptized, if I can use the term, Ali Juppé.
I have never attacked you personally. Never.
And not condemning the campaign?
Let's not exaggerate. When I'm called a homophobe each morning, I don't see you rushing to my defense. We each take care of ourselves.
Why would you?
How did you find, James, when you were watching that particular bit of sparring, how they're handling, of course, the media upheaval that we discussed in part one of the show?
I mean, just seeing the way that plays out, again, compared to the debate in which Donald Trump was sort of lurking directly behind Hillary Clinton and sort of breathing behind her neck on camera. I mean, it was a kind of refreshing change of pace, to say the least. I don't know. For me, what was especially evident in the most recent debate was seeing Juppé's idea of this identité heureuse,
Happy identity.
Happy identity, a kind of defense, although I would say a very tepid defense of multiculturalism in France. It, when put to the test in front of a critic like Fillon, it didn't seem to have as much teeth as it might need to gain traction and to sort of convince voters that it's an ideal worth maintaining.
Happy identity, certainly not the idea that François Fillon was defending back in August. He tacked a hard right in his home constituency when he talked about colonialism and France's Christian roots.
No, France is not guilty of having wanted to share its culture with the peoples of Africa, Asia and North America. No, France did not invent slavery. France is 15 centuries of history since the baptism of King Clovis.
Your reaction to that, Patrick Smith?
Well, he's gunning for a constituency. Perhaps, as you say, the retirees and so on. I don't know whether it's going to have a lot of resonance with young people, because young people, above all, want jobs, and it is said that young people are less prone to buy into this patriotism and nationalist stuff as well. I think they're going to be more interested in the economic results. So that does beg the question, where are those votes going to go? And there doesn't seem to be anyone on the left running for that sort of progressive, pluralistic line. So are they going to go to a sort of a reactionary, non-pluralistic line with the National Front? I mean, I can't see it appealing, to be honest.
I think again and again, it's a little bit like what we saw with Sarkozy, Fillon is not twitchy the way Sarkozy is. He can hold his body still. He doesn't sort of look like he's going to spin off into the stratosphere any moment, and that's a good thing. But if you look, for instance, at his positions on Islam, on Muslims, they're really, really, really right-wing. And, his book about Islam in France talks about the Third World War. They're trying to lead us into a Third World War, these Muslims. What? What is he talking about? He's talking about playing on fear exactly the way we accuse Marine Le Pen of doing. But in fact, just as we saw with Sarkozy before, we have this politician now who's going to make Marine Le Pen look more moderate.
And you have the sense as well, I think, that, like exactly as you're saying with his views on Islam, that, while a candidate like Sarkozy is a political opportunist trying to steal voters away from Marine Le Pen, the Front National, you have the idea that with Fillon and his kind of cool demeanor, his relatively subdued style, and the way that he kind of was a quiet contender up until the first round of the primaries, that this is not opportunism at all, and that this is in fact his true beliefs, and that it's a conviction that will not go away if he is elected in April.
More of an ideologue than Mr. Trump is what you're saying. Yeah. The campaign picture coming into focus in Germany, which votes next September. The week began with reactions to Angela Merkel's announcement that she's seeking a fourth term. By Thursday, the race was formally on.
I've made my decision. I will not run as President of the European Parliament for a third term next year. I will run for the German Bundestag as the head of the list of my party, the SPD in North Rhine-Westphalia.
Now, what's interesting, Anne-Sylvaine Chassani, is that this has people in Brussels scrambling because the parliament in Brussels is mostly center-right. And with Scholz's departure, it's not looking like there's going to be any center-left presence in all the top posts at the European Union level. Basically, Europe has moved to the right.
Yeah, it's true. There's a big question, mark about who's going to succeed Mr. Scholz, and we can see that there are already names, coming up. Two women, I have to say, which is new, from the right. So that's a tradition. The center right is going to but in essence, the Parliament has always, because of the large part of fringe parties, in the Parliament. This has been a parliament who's been pretty consensual. They've been running an alliance between the left and the right. So the question is, will the new president be able to maintain that, center ground in Parliament? But I think they won't have, they won't have any choice but to keep it together at some point, to some extent.
So in other words, just like in Germany, Europe is kind of running on a grand coalition of social democrats, Christian democrats, and so therefore it's the social democrats that are losing out.
Yeah, I think if you're going to look Europe-wide and at the subjects we were talking about earlier, you have to say that Europe has been running on a consensus about certain common values. And I think the question is whether these insurgent parties that are coming up challenge the consensus about what those common values are. If we start to see politicians winning big in European elections, not only for the European Parliament, but in national elections, who really challenge the idea of social cohesion, like, for instance, Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, or maybe Norbert Hofer, who may be elected in Austria in a week or so. These are going to create enormous problems for Europe. And I think Europe, the whole future of Europe, is really in danger, because I think we're seeing a disruption of the consensus and the rise of these insurgent parties.
Austrian elections coming up on December the 4th, the same day that Italy's center-left prime minister could lose a referendum. The March elections that Christopher was mentioning in the Netherlands. The presidential election in France we talked about. Just a point here, Hillary Clinton's lead in the popular vote, now solidly above 2 million, yet she lost. James Macaulay, you co-wrote a piece that describes it as yet another nail in the coffin of the center-left.
That's right. As the others have mentioned.
And in your piece, there's a picture of one of the upstart candidates, the former economy minister, Emmanuel Macron.
Yes, I don't choose the photos.
You don't choose the photos, but
It doesn't really speak to your theme.
No, not quite. But it's quite a dramatic photo, so we'll keep it.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I think absolutely. I mean, it's again difficult to speak with certainty and a kind of broad brush about all of these movements kind of fitting into the same narrative. But I think what is true is that this, I wouldn't just call it consensus, but I would say this kind of widespread marriage of social democracy from the aftermath of the Second World War with this kind of neoliberal economic agenda. So the so-called third way of people like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, that has fallen apart in spectacular fashion in many national contexts. And, I think in many ways that the traditional center-left that, by the way, built Europe from the rubble of World War II into this kind of interconnected coalition of welfare states has today stumbled on some troubled waters precisely because of its success, by which I mean that today, voters take for granted the infrastructure that the traditional center-left built. People just assume that they will have healthcare, education, social services, the list goes on and on. And these are not things that the left can sort of campaign on anymore because they seem self-evident to everyone. And so when you take out this society dimension and the debate becomes about culture, that's a natural advantage for the right. And you start seeing things like the identité heureuse look kind of tepid and weak in response.
Finally, before we go, what organization brings together more than half of all UN members, speaks French, and has picked beautiful Madagascar for its latest summit? We're talking about the International Organization of the Francophonie, the French-speaking nations. It's quite incredible. We're going to have Ansi Venchasani, Justin Trudeau flying in, the French president, François Hollande, and all to celebrate the fact that they speak French.
Yeah, how weird. I'm French, and I've never really understood what the Francophonie was meant for, really. It could be really an interesting platform to discuss, terrorism, and if really France had made some effort to maintain those links with those French-speaking countries. But I find that, in the past decade, or 2 decades, there hasn't been much, effort put in this francophonie. The budget has been declining. I mean, it's a bit of a mess, frankly. I mean, Qatar is an observer. I mean, Saudi Arabia wants to be a member, an associate member. What's going on there? So I'm having a bit of a trouble understanding
Patrick
the
Smith,
relevance.
is this simply a remnant of colonialism that, the British have the Commonwealth, so we have to have the Francophonie?
Exactly that. I think and this Commonwealth has the same sort of tensions. Everyone thinks, it's a brilliant idea. You get Canada, Australia, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, South Africa in the same room. Something interesting must come out of this. And sad to say, it rarely does, except we journalists have a great time when we go and we get drinks with heads of state you don't normally get and all the rest of it. But in terms of hard policy, it's never lived up to its potential and the expectations we have. As for Saudi joining, we were speculating before, what is it? Is it rivalry with Qatar? Is it some sort of long play rivalry against Iran? Whatever. The danger is the Francophonie and the Commonwealth are just sort of fora for nationalist games, essentially, in terms of who joins what and how much power they wield within the organizations. Doesn't seem to be a coherent strategy that comes out of it.
All right, that summit taking place this weekend. Patrick Smith, I want to thank you, and I thank as well James Macaulay, Christopher Dickey, and Sylvain Jassani. Time now for our Media Watch segment. And the person setting up is Emma James. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're beginning with the United States. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, so today is this thing called Black Friday, which, by the way, has made it to our shores.
Indeed, it has. I think it's got something to do, hasn't it, with getting
Shopping.
away from the family the day after Thanksgiving when you've had enough. And a lot of people before Thanksgiving were talking about genuine worries because they'd voted differently to other members of their family. If we take a look, though, Black Friday has been reimagined by Rob Rogers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It's been reimagined as a post-Trump era thing, and you've got White Nationalist Friday, Small-Minded Saturday, and Cyber Bully Monday, which is just wonderful. But taking a look at this, lots of people making the same joke. That, of course, isn't the real Donald Trump account on Twitter. That is a fake one. Black Friday, I don't like the sound of that. And this one, similar theme, just waiting for the Trump tweet. Why do the blacks get their own day after Thanksgiving? However, if you're already looking ahead to Christmas, forget Thanksgiving, then you may have heard about the Trump collectible. It is a version of the Make America Great Again baseball cap, but it is a Christmas tree decoration. And would you believe, €149 that is being sold for.
Wait, for one?
For one, because it's edged with gold, edged with 24-karat gold. What else would Donald Trump want to have on his official items other than a bit of bling? Now, the emails have already gone out to Donald Trump supporters who gave money to his campaign, saying, buy one of these. And they were told that President-elect Trump loves Christmas and makes a point of proudly saying Merry Christmas every chance he gets. They're obviously hoping that's going to sell more of them. They are also available on Amazon, where the price is even higher, would you believe? Over $230 on Amazon. They were actually sold out a little earlier today. But
they were sold out.
The more interesting thing to note is the number of customer reviews, 3,744. And basically, people are using Amazon to vent their frustrations about Trump and the president-elect, and clearly these are people who would have been voting for Hillary Clinton. Mashable perhaps puts it best when they say this: Donald Trump's Christmas ornament made Amazon reviews great again. And there are lots and lots of examples of these. There was a blue ornament, it was smarter than this one, had a lifetime of experience, supported trees of all colours and beliefs, and was loved by 2 million more people. This ornament is the one on Amazon. Now, taking a look, they are well worth a look. These are some of the most popular ones. As you can see, nearly 18,000 people have liked the top one there. It tried to put my nativity figure into an internment camp. Would not die again. Another one, it called Mary a nasty woman, told Joseph to go back to where he came from, built built a wall around the manger, and then when you press it, it sings, "I'm dreaming of a totally white Christmas." Lots of people talking about as well the price. The price seems awfully high for something so cheap and tacky. Could we get a recount, says one user. It is just incredible that so many people have been moved to comment on this particular hat, which is really quite nasty. But one thing that, I mean, it does seem a little unfair to say all this about Donald Trump, but it's about to get even worse. So if you do like Donald Trump, you might want to turn away now. You may remember he made some fairly revolting comments about his own daughter some time ago. I think it was back in 2006. He said, if she wasn't my daughter, this is Ivanka he's talking about, I would date her. Well, somebody else has now dug up what her response to that was, and she said, if he wasn't my father, I would spray him with mace.
Oh, okay. He is warned. Anyway, many thanks, Emma James. Keep those reviews coming. Okay. We'll have more later. I want to thank our panel once again. And I want to thank you for joining us here in The World This Week.